All right, so tell us a little bit to begin what your, sort of where you're from and what your position is at the Herald and what it entails.
So like I said, my name is Evan. I'm from Louisville, and I'm a senior here at Western, and I am the editor-in-chief at the College Heights Herald. So what that means for me is I am ultimately responsible and in charge of supervising anything and everything that goes in our newspaper or on the website at the Herald. And I am in charge of things like assigning stories, editing stories, helping reporters do whatever they need to do to get their jobs done. And so I'm really in more of a supervisory manager type role, but I also have a really active voice in some of the small things as well. I started out doing sports at the Herald when I was a freshman, and kind of just worked my way through the different desks over there, and I was sports editor for 2 semesters. Then I did digital managing editor, taking care of the website for last spring, and then I've been the editor since the fall. And so really it's just it's me making sure that everything is being done the right way, and if not, I'm in charge of taking the blame, taking the responsibility, and making it right. So it's a lot of responsibility, but it's a lot of fun. Very good experience. Really cool to be a part of a team like that.
All right, so the reason we're interviewing you here today is because we were interested in the Herald's experience covering the resignation of Dean Snyder and the events that followed. So just talk a little bit about how you all found out about the resignation.
So we found out about Larry Snyder resigning just like most people did, and that was just through the email that the provost Ballman sent out. And it was the quick paragraph email saying that he had resigned, and they had named Sally Ray as interim dean of Potter College, which of course later she would decline that 3 days later. But once we found that out, once we got that email, we immediately started to wonder why and wonder what happened. And before we could even figure out what we thought about it, we had dozens upon dozens of tips and anonymous emails from different people across the university telling us what happened. And so essentially we had to kind of take a step back and figure out which of these different calls and emails and tips that we're getting are legit and which ones are just immediate reaction from these people in the moment. And so we had so many things coming in that I took a whiteboard and just wrote down all the names of people that we had heard from, what their position was and why they might know something, and then the order in which we wanted to start reaching out to these people. And while we started doing that, I think the next day I got a hold of a chain of emails from a bunch of Potter College department heads, from someone I know happened upon them and then gave them to me. And in these emails were these Potter College department heads going back and forth on their personal email accounts, so their Gmails, their Hotmails, all that good stuff, because they didn't want to be on the university's emails where they could be being monitored, which they would have been if they were. And they were angry, they were confused, and they were already planning a day after to meet and discuss drafting a letter of no confidence in the provost. And so we had the room number and the time for the meeting the next morning of when they wanted to meet and do all this. So that was the first kind of situation that we were trying to get ahead of the story, and that we had the opportunity to get ahead of the story. And so we had to decide whether or not to reach out to some of these department heads and ask them about this meeting, or just to kind of show up and see what we could get. And so it's not a policy-making body, which means like if the University Senate, for example, would meet like they did last week, that's a policy-making body, therefore their meetings are open from the Kentucky Open Meetings laws. And they can't have a closed session where they discuss certain things. And so this was just a group of department heads wanting to come together right after and talk. And so we knew that wasn't going to be an open meeting. And so the best we thought we might get if we just showed up the next morning and waited for it to end was they would shut us out. So we went ahead, I called the guy who had sent all these emails, and keep in mind that one of the reasons I called him was because these are people who are eventually, maybe not then and there, but eventually a few days, however long it takes, are going to want to talk about this because they're not happy. And they aren't really, at this, I'll get to it in a second, but immediately I'm thinking, these people aren't going to be afraid to say anything because what do they have to lose? But then 30 seconds later, I was like, well, they could lose their jobs. Their dean just lost his job for no apparent reason, no reason the university wants to give. And so these department heads are going to maybe a little tentative until they get enough support behind them. Anyways, I called one of them, and I asked him, we've heard that you all are going to have a meeting tomorrow morning. We're just wondering what you all might be talking about, and if you could let us know anything that you know about the resignation. And he didn't want to give me a comment, and he tried to get off the phone with me a couple times, and I said, what about just speaking on background or off the record just so I can know and move from there? And he said, the only thing I can tell you is don't give up on this story. And I said, okay, what do you think, like the next couple of days, a week? He said, that's very possible in the next couple of days, but don't give up on the story, and then kind of hung up. So we knew that it was something, because if it was nothing, he would have flatly denied it or something like that. Well, we show up to the meeting the next morning, and the door's locked and the lights are off. So they didn't want it coming out yet, because these are all these Potter College people that are, like I said, trying to make sure that they have the support from outside Potter College to go against some of the university administration, like the provost, before they actually do it. And so that was a tricky one to play, but it was good that we got that stuff ahead of time because we knew in advance and we could start preparing for what might come. And I literally, in the emails, was a draft of that letter of no confidence. So we knew it was legit. So then when he didn't want to talk, we just called every single other person that was included on those emails. And eventually, none of them wanted to go on record right away, but by doing that, in the next several days, eventually they talked to us, which is what you have to do in order to get that kind of information. Even if you know that someone's not going to tell you what you want to hear right away, or tell you what you know they know right away, you have to carefully poke at them until they can trust that you're going to handle this information the right way so that when they are ready to talk, they will. And so that was the first couple of days of it, and then everything spun out of control. The interim dean declined the position, Sally Ray, and then the University Senate, we had been hearing they were trying to have an emergency special meeting to do their own vote of no confidence, but they had to have a certain number of signatures on that to get a special meeting called. And we had been hearing that they already had they had plenty of signatures, and then we had heard that they didn't have any signatures. So in all of that, it's wading through the rumors and the things and talking to people who are plugged in to the University Senate. So that means like faculty people that are on the Senate Executive Committee, things like that know these type of things. Just straight calling Kirk Atkinson, the chair of the University Senate, and asking him, because he can't lie to you. He can't say, no, we don't have a meeting, because it would be an open meeting, and he would just be seen as lying about it. So he said, I don't have the number of signatures yet, but I'm expecting them. So that was another instance of getting ahead of it, knowing that it was coming down the pipe.
So how did you, you talked about you guys got a lot of rumors. Mm-hmm. How did you sort of sort the rumors from the facts?
So the the rumors that we were getting from people who were willing to have their name behind these rumors, we wanted to make sure that we kept those in mind and we vetted those out. But we also had a lot of people from anonymous email accounts emailing us with different tips saying that the provost walked in with a letter of termination and a letter of resignation and said, "It's your choice," to Larry Snyder, and that she sent this email about his resignation out before he could even get back to his office, all that kind of stuff, which we think these things are probably true in a situation like that, but you can't know until you know. So we would take everything we had from people that had their name behind their email. So like John Smith emails us this tip. Okay, he's a Potter College department head. He's willing to put his name on it. Let's put him up here. But Mr. News6864@gmail.com that emailed us isn't so willing to put his name on it. So why is he reluctant? Who is this? You can't spend too much time wondering who it is as much as what they're saying. And really that's kind of a case-by-case situation on how you determine if it's worth chasing or not.
Was there any that just led you on a wild goose chase, that there was something they said that you chased and it turned out to just be nonsense?
I don't think so in this case. And that was what I was about to say. Once you start hearing the same thing multiple times from different people, you get a sense that this is probably rock solid legit. So no, I don't think we got down any rabbit holes here, but we've had those things come before that were just totally not true, and you just get a couple of people past them and realize that that have any legs. But and also I forgot to mention, our news editor was walking around over here the day that he resigned and ran into him and just went up to him and asked him straight up what happened, how do you feel? And right in the immediacy of it, he didn't want to say anything too much beyond what